Welcome in, guys. Today I got Jeris. She's a Conway County dispatcher. Got 6 years, and she has quite the story to tell us. Welcome in.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Of
So,
course.
want to get started by what led you to dispatching? What got you to want to be the voice behind everyone?
It's honestly an accident. Ran into Carrie one day and told her I ran into Jonathan and asked Jonathan, when they were going to be hiring again. And I guess time passed and he forgot about me. So I ran into Carrie and said something to her about it. And next thing I know, I run into Jamie and
Hmm.
Jamie's said a little birdie told him I wanted a job. And I said, kind of looked at him funny and where we were at, and I was like, "I don't want a job here," because he was there working as the cashier, and I was like, "Not
Hmm.
not here." He was like, "No, at dispatch." I said, "Oh, I didn't know you worked there." And he called me, went in and did an interview with him and Steve, and next thing I know, I was accidentally just fell into it. I mean, it was
So,
kinda all by accident.
what were you doing before dispatch?
Uh, well, I worked in the funeral home industry in Roller in Conway,
Okay.
and then I worked for Richard Neal at Rosewood for a while, and then for 15 years, I was in the monument industry. I sold monuments for cemeteries.
So, quite a difference there going from, helping people preserve a memory of someone to trying to, stop that from ever happening, from being a thing. Quite a shift. What was that?
Definitely.
I know we talked about you don't really remember your first shift, but when those first few days, I know they're a little hazy. It's been a few years, but what was that like making that change? Because it's a whole different world when you get into being a first responder.
I just remember watching the girls and just remembering how fast they were and thinking, "Oh gosh, I'll never be that fast. I'll never be as good as them." And before you know it, you're just as good, if
Hmm.
not faster.
Oh, you feel like you're faster
I
than
feel
you?
like I'm faster sometimes, yeah.
So who do you think's the fastest in the office now?
Whitney.
Really?
Whitney is fast on that keyboard. She is a topper.
I'm sure she's going to appreciate hearing that.
She will.
So whenever we talk about what you guys are doing and what really the limitations, because you are dispatching, right? You're in a room, well, you guys are specifically are in a basement.
Yes.
That's a whole different environment. When you're hearing and processing and trying to get police or medical or fire, whatever resource that person's calling for on that crazy day, is it hard to process that? Like, talk us through those kind of like what's going through your mind when you're doing those and how you're handling that, because you're not able to actually physically help, which is, the natural thing. As any first responder, we want to help.
Yeah, sometimes you feel like you wanna jump through the phone and, just do it yourself, and you
Hmm.
can't. It gets frustrating at times because you don't know what they're seeing, and you know what they need to do, and
Yeah.
sometimes they physically can't, and it does make you stressed because you do wanna just jump through the phone and do it for them, but you can't. We don't get to know what happens sometimes, most of the time. We're just that voice.
Hmm. It's an important voice, though.
Yes.
And you can't discredit that. So, how do you process in those moments where you're not able to jump to the phone as much as you want to, and maybe it's taking us on the fire side a little bit longer to get there than we'd like, and especially you guys would like, because you're having to sometimes stay there, what we call being on public service, being
I mean, you
that
just
constant
reassure them 'em you've
voice.
got help on the way. Um, I just try to stay calm. I mean, I do a lot of breathing exercises in the midst of it all, just to try to remember that they do need me to stay on the line and be vocal. Um, but it does get hard at times. You do
Yeah.
wanna just stop and run out and get in your car and just go, but it's you just can't get there as fast as they need.
Hmm. So when you're talking about the breathing exercises, what are those that you utilize?
I do so many, through the nose and out through the mouth.
Hmm.
Do a couple that I hold and then release.
Oh, so it's almost like a box breathing
Yeah,
technique.
yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's actually something my counselor had me start doing. earlier this year when I started going was box breathing.
It
That's
does
actually
help.
very hard. It helps,
It does help.
but it's hard. You gotta really think about it.
Yeah,
So
because
you're
you
good
have
at multitasking.
um, you have to be doing what we do.
Well, that's why I wanted to kinda bring that
Yeah,
up,
yeah, you
I've
have
sat for many hours inside dispatch with you guys and other places. That's part of the job people don't realize. You're talking to a caller, keying in notes, toning people, answering
and
questions.
listening to the background even when
Yeah,
it's not recording. I have to know when somebody's keyed up, if they're on the wrong tower. Sometimes they'll scan, and be on the wrong tower, and then you have to look up and lock it in and just be on your toes at all times.
it's
Um,
exhausting.
it is. It does. I do a lot of detox baths.
Is that your after work ritual?
That is. The girls laugh at me because 'cause always like, "Oh, Jeris' shower thoughts." But that's when you pick your calls apart. You just wanna be faster and better and recognize different everybody's different, so everybody's signs of stroke or heart attack sometimes are different. They're not always the same. You just have to kinda know what to look for, what you've experienced. And if I'm not taking the call and I'm just listening in, I'll try to, guide them. Go ahead and get this one going. They can get there quicker.
Mhm.
Go ahead and get law enforcement going, and they can, start CPR till we can get the Lucas there. Just different things like that. See if you got anybody in the area. I mean, you're always on your toes
So when you talk about listening in, you don't necessarily have to be
on the
on.
taking the call.
Yeah.
I always listen.
Is
It's
that for
always
everybody? Is everyone always
yes,
doing that?
yes,
So basically for your 12 hours, because you guys work 12 hours, every call that gets through, both of you are absorbing all that.
yes. While she's asking questions, I'm paging out, or
Mhm.
vice versa. So that's just important to reassure your caller that because they think that you're just asking questions and you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we're in the background already doing that a lot of the times. 100% of the time, there's
Yeah.
always somebody there listening in. So
So what's it like whenever you have that caller? Because I know on the fire and I've worked on the ambulance side, and we sometimes get a little rude to you guys. I'll admit, even my own
that's why
self.
we have breathing exercises.
We developed
Yeah,
to have
we
those.
have breathing exercises.
That's fun. What's it like whenever that caller? Because I've sat in there with you guys and seen where they're not really giving you information. You have to use, background subtle noises and stuff. What's that like having to figure that out to get the right things going?
I just have the when in doubt, roll them out.
Hmm.
I'd rather have you guys there and not need you than because sometimes they're just so excited you can't understand what they're saying.
Yeah,
You really don't know what's going on. And then there's times where they sit the phone down, and you just hear background, so you're not sure really what's going on because 'cause they're scared,
that's got to be
so
stressful.
it does it gets you very aggravated, but, we have breathing exercises for that.
So what about post the more, I don't want to say more critical call because every call is important. Every call is critical. Every emergency is an emergency. But when you have those ones that really stick with you, how do you get when you leave that day? What do you do to help yourself be ready? Well, but let's take a step back. When you're done with that call, how do you get ready for the next call?
Honestly, I personally,
Hmm.
anything I'm going through at that moment gets set to the side
Okay,
and then move on to the next. Everybody does different.
so almost
Um,
compartmentalizing.
I kind of build it up and then I'll go hiking or rage clean. Everybody has what they do. Some girls do diamond art, some,
Hmm.
craft or do their things, but we
Processing
set it
mechanism.
aside and move on to the next. I
Okay,
mean,
so what about after the shift? Because that's how you get through the day. But when you get after the shift,
that's where I go home and I rage clean for a
okay,
while. We cook dinner, do, kind of just decompress in that way.
do you have somebody that you talk to, like a peer support person, or
Um, yeah, we'll use each other a lot of the times,
okay?
and pick calls apart. Um, just to feel like, did we do all we could do? Because you do question yourself. I had one the other day that a friend of mine knew them, so it kind of hit me a little different. And you just think, could I have done more? Could I have gotten them there faster if I would have recognized this or that or.
So you were talking about one you had the other day. If you're comfortable talking about it, how did that affect you? Even once you talked to somebody, was that enough for you to be able to process, or do you feel like there was something more that needs to be there to help you guys when some of those more, you know, not critical, we don't have to call them what we call critical incidents where there, a lot of resources and a lot that goes on, but the ones that really stick with you, do you feel like there's the right stuff in place for you there?
Yeah, because it's me. It's me. It's who I page out first, who I
Mhm.
get going first.
No, I
You
meant
just have to.
not on the because you do a great job, but what I'm talking about is you had a call that you guys had to process through the other day, and you called your peer that you have to talk about it. Do you feel like there's something more we as leaders and as an industry we could be putting in place and kind of developing for these younger folks that are coming in to help make sure that they have those same tools and those same resources there?
I think maybe just interacting more with your dispatchers.
Hmm.
You know, get them getting to meet each other, kind of see what everybody does, and that way we all have an understanding what everybody's jobs are.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of letting the dispatcher sees what a fire call's like or a medical for a fire department or
Hmm.
them kinda seeing what we deal with on calls and different things, just maybe interacting, getting to know each other on that kinda level a little more.
Do you feel like our debriefs that we've started doing are a good segue for that?
Yes, yes. That would be good for, those that maybe don't know how to deal with things or don't
Hmm.
have routines to deal with things or, you know, what works for them, trying to find themselves because they are young.
I haven't had that life experience, so
Right. I didn't get humbled at 20.
none of us were humbled at 20.
No,
We were,
no.
we were piss and vinegar those
Oh,
days.
you can't tell them nothing. Can't tell them nothing.
So you have been through. I'm not going to talk about what we've talked about in debriefs because that's not appropriate. But do you feel like when you go through those debriefs, hearing because this is something that's being talked about right now, hearing everyone's emotions and trauma, you feel like that's
Yeah,
helpful?
it does help them. It helps me to kinda see where they're at,
Hmm.
what they how they, deal with things,
Yeah.
maybe giving me an angle of, I didn't think of it that way,
Hmm.
or, even me sharing stories. They, maybe not have thought of things that way, and it helps them deal with something a little different or ta you know, take it differently than what
Yeah.
they maybe did.
So I personally, for the fire side, whenever I bring them in, I usually go 48 hours after the call. Give you some time to, take a moment, take a breather,
Yeah,
and
leave the
just,
room, kinda walk around. I
yeah.
do make sure my girls do that if,
Um,
kinda go outside for a minute and
okay.
regroup, but having someone to talk to, I think does help them, yes.
So the day one you versus the day, however, 6 years, I don't know how many days that is, but I'm not going to do that mental math right now.
Right?
How much growth do you feel outside of just getting better at the job, but how to handle and process? Like, how much do you feel like that's made you able to actually be efficient on the computer, just being able to handle and process? Do you feel like they go hand in hand? Do you feel like being better at the job makes you better to handle it? Like, kind of walk us through that.
Oh, you mean like getting yes, it did help, getting better at the job physically and then not being able to stress every time a call comes in. I know what to look for and yes, it does help.
So the more training we put on that
Yes,
front side, really.
yes, it does help. When you're
Okay.
comfortable with your equipment, that matters for sure.
Okay, because that's one of the things we often are, we're debating is, are we putting enough time into, especially on the medical side right now, it's a huge thing. We've taken paramedics from 2 years down to 12 months, or now they got bridge programs where it's even faster at some agencies. The discussion's always been, are we giving enough baseline training? So you came from the other direction, right? You had 3 days, from what I understood,
I
right?
was on the radio in 3 days,
And
yes.
that's quick for a job that I have spent, I don't know, probably the sum total of at least 10 days worth of cumulative hours in there, and I don't feel comfortable getting on there just to say 10-4.
Yeah. I was on
So,
there within 3 days. I kinda just slid in and
mhm,
just did it. Um, but I remember what it felt like to be unsure
mhm,
being new. I never forgot that, and so training the girls,
yeah.
I know that pit in their stomach or, "Am I doing it fast enough?" Or, I never forgot that, and so
What's that like whenever a 911 call comes in? Because you were talking about it a couple of different times now, and something I've never really thought about. Because I know what it's like when I hear the tones. I don't know that gut feeling. What kind of call is it? Where am I going?
yeah.
How bad is it? What is that like for you guys? Because you were the first chain of the link for the 911 system. What's that? What's that feel like? What's that like, what processes in your mind?
It's just knowing you can relate to most of the calls.
Mhm.
Most of us girls up there can relate, you know, to the calls that come in some way, shape, or form. But you immediately get that gut, you know, what is it? What's it gonna be? Is it somebody not breathing? That's you treat all calls that way until you know different. But just being there longer, that does go away. It gets less and less, but once you discover that that's what it is, that it doesn't go away.
So those critical
Yeah,
moments, it's still just
you
the same?
still feel that same way.
Okay. And it's the same way for us in the field,
Yeah,
We hear a structure fire with entrapment, I don't care if it's the first one or the 20th one, it's just
yeah, it's still that same
yep.
feeling. That doesn't go away.
So, how does having, because we all have our own personal life trauma, how does having some of that when you have certain calls that kinda relate to stuff that you've had happen in your own life, how does that affect trying to process that call and get them the help they need?
Yeah, we're all pretty good about knowing each other's backstories. We're all
Mhm.
kinda like a little family, so if it's something that hits personal to the other one, we all try to take over.
Yeah.
That's why you got that second one there,
Mhm.
you know? Um, you just you just try to make sure that they if she doesn't go home picking that call apart too much, so you do try to pick up and make sure that they get just as quick response as anybody else. Of
Yeah.
course, they would do that anyway, but
Mhm.
just making sure she doesn't go home and worry herself with it too much because it does hit home sometimes for some of us. So we're really good about, if it's a domestic violence call and where you're working with that partner that experienced that personally, you want to make sure that you take that call over for her so she doesn't have that worry in the back of her mind or, you know,
Do you feel
it
like
gets too personal for her.
yeah. Do you
We
feel
try
like
to watch out for each other.
but what about with the where you're always hearing, right? Because you guys both hear.
Yeah, we still hear it. We definitely still hear it.
Is there moments where that becomes too much for you guys?
We do. Yeah. There's times we've cried while we're taking calls. You
Mhm.
just mute it and suck it up and do what you gotta do. And that's when we make sure that they go walk around or
Yeah.
separate themselves when we're done, because it's what you do. I
Mhm.
mean, a good dispatcher is she's gonna cry. Sometimes you cry with them.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, no, nothing, not at all.
Well, that's the key thing that most people don't realize is there's nothing wrong with having a moment like that, right?
No, and it reminds them that we're human too, and
Yep.
and we are there, and sometimes they just need somebody to cry with them.
How often does that happen where you guys get a call, not necessarily where you're having to tone us out, but someone's just needing a voice?
Just people wanting to call and
Yeah.
and just having anxiety attacks, that does happen, we do. I try to keep from having to send resources when
Mhm.
it's things like that. I
Yeah.
try to utilize myself. We have regulars,
Yeah.
that do call and that just need a moment to talk because they're having, just a stressful moment.
Yeah.
I mean, that does happen.
So as a society, this is more bigger picture, but do you feel like the resources are there for the mental health for not just us? Because we're getting more there and we're getting more as we're doing now is, getting more upfront with it. But as society, do you feel like we have enough resources in place so that way it's not a burden on the 911 system? Because, if you're having to handle it, you know, that means they didn't have anyone else to call in that moment or didn't know they had someone else to call.
I mean, if the girls are requesting resources, it's there. I
Hmm.
don't necessarily request resources because I use my own. I have my own people I talk to. As for our callers that are needing resources, I do think we could use some places for them
Hmm.
and different things that, like we're increasing our homeless
Yeah.
here. A lot of them are mentally ill. I do think we could, you know, we do need something or somewhere for them to go. I really wouldn't know what angle to hit on that because sometimes age is a criteria for some of them,
Yep.
or they're not, or they don't have dementia or Alzheimer's,
Hmm.
so it's not a elderly angle. Sometimes it's just someone in their early 60s that did drugs for a period of time and now they're showing strange behavior. What do you do with that? You know? What do
Yeah.
you how do you help them? You know, just a lot of times our hands are tied with resources in that way. I mean, it's not illegal to be intoxicated, what do
People don't know that sometimes, though.
what do you do with them,
Yeah.
you know?
How many times have you gotten that call because people don't realize it's okay to be different
Yeah,
or it's okay to
right.
be
If they're just
altered, you
yeah,
know?
they're sitting on the side of the road, just yeah. I mean, that there's we check on them. There's really nowhere for them to go. They don't have any family. What do you do with them? And there are more and more coming to our county, unfortunately.
So you guys get that inside look on that aspect of it. Over the last few years, everyone talks about we're the third fastest growing county. How has that affected the 911 system on your guys' end? Because we see the fire and the medical side. You guys see everything, the addressing, all of the stuff.
Yeah, yeah, we get a lot of calls in that way for sure.
Do you feel like it's becoming overwhelming at times as we're starting to hit those growth stages?
No, I mean that because we have a department that I'll just transfer them to that
Mhm.
department and they can
What
speak
about
with
the
them or
the 911 activations? Do you feel like that's shifting on the way the calls we're getting, the types or the variety of them?
we go in spurts where we have more calls on
Mhm.
911 than others. I think summer and winters, quite a bit difference. Then
How
we
different are
just
they?
the weather change. When the weather gets real hot, we have
Mhm.
you know, more calls.
It's almost like peak times of year.
Yeah, or really hot or really cold.
So here's a juicy one. In the field, we got what we call black clouds, right? That's the people you work with them, you know it's gonna be something bad, something
Oh,
crazy.
yes, yes, and that's usually when we have a part-timer,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
they're not used to the shift, and so when you got somebody that's not your normal partner come in, that you usually know it's gonna be a crazy day, that's where I can relate to what you're saying there.
Yeah. So with you guys as part-timers, when they were in there, that's the
Yes.
here we go.
Yep, it's gonna be the the show.
So how do you prepare for that?
Well, it's coffee, maybe a Red Bull that somebody left in the fridge. We're taking it for the day.
So it's kinda like a firehouse.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can leave money floating around, but don't leave food or
Don't
drinks.
leave Red Bulls or caffeine, Dr. Peppers, not too long, they're gonna get snatched up in there.
That's funny. So there's never any one person that really just kinda brings the chaos?
Uh, well, she's no longer there anymore, but yes, we had one girl that if you worked with her, it was a guarantee that
Oh, really?
it was gonna be a hell of a night.
So you mentioned that. How you guys work 12-hour shifts.
Yes,
That's a like a Panama or a 2-2-3 rotation. Yeah. Um, how how unique is that, especially with you having, a previous whole career where you go to a 12-hour shift, and then on top of that, most people don't realize dispatchers rotate days and nights every quarter?
yes, every 3
Yeah.
months, we rotate. It's tiring, it takes a village to raise a family,
Mhm.
and from being able to pick up your kids from daycare and school and to not being able to, you rely on a lot of people,
Yeah.
even to bring our meals sometimes or just having the one officer that you know that when he's on duty, he's not gonna mind to go pick something up for you, you know? You definitely depend on a lot of people,
It's a lot of missed
but they
birthdays
depend
and
on us, so it's
yeah,
kinda,
it's a
we
balance.
share.
Yeah. So when we talk about the balancing of your home life, do you feel like in the last 6 years, because you have such a unique schedule in life, more similar to what the rest of us first responders have? I mean, y'all literally mimic the officers on that
Yeah,
side of it. You feel like that makes it hard to have, a good home life balance?
for sure, for sure.
Anything special that you might do that someone could recommend on how you've built your village, but B, how you process because you're there on holidays and birthdays, and you miss a lot of stuff, a lot of critical moments in life.
I do. I don't know, it still hurts. I mean, when you're not
Hmm.
there with your family on Christmas or Thanksgiving, we just always try to celebrate before or after.
Yeah.
Um, just pretend that it wasn't really Thanksgiving, we're doing it today. We do a lot of that. We just pretend.
There's
No.
nothing wrong with pretending.
No, I mean, we make it our own day,
Yeah,
but
you still get a day with family
but
though.
it does still bother you that,
Yeah.
you know and of course, our boss is great, his mom always brings us food
Hmm.
and does that for us, so We kinda have our work family.
So how is that? Because last couple of years, I've noticed you guys, your boss always brings you stuff, and you guys try to make it, almost like a family within a family. How has that really helped build a camaraderie? Does that help with for those that get nervous or they're not as outgoing as you might come off as some days? How does that help when those kind of events happen? Does it help build them in? Because I know there's
I
some
don't
people
meet a
out there.
stranger, Darren,
I
you
know
know
this.
that, and so I take in everybody.
Yeah.
I try to make everybody comfortable that,
Hmm.
so if they're with me, they're having a good time. I try to make it easy as everybody's transition for that. But, but I've known these people my whole life
Hmm.
too, so then that, hell, his mom raised my kids. My boss's mom raised my kids. She was their caregiver,
Yeah.
and then little did I know years later I was gonna be working for her son, but, you know, you just
You never know where life's taking you.
yeah, you don't, and so not meeting a stranger and always being kind and friendly is important
Hmm.
in this line of work for sure.
Do you feel like because not and nowadays we are starting to grow, so maybe it's going to be a little different. Do you feel like because you know so many of these folks and you have such deep connections to the community, does that help you or does it
I think
hurt you?
yeah, I think it's very helpful. Even whenever people call and they recognize my voice,
Hmm.
everybody knows my voice. They'll just it immediately makes them calm. And then before I even worked here, I helped bury their loved one. So if they haven't met me this way, they've met me some other way. And so I do think that helps me in what I do for
Hmm.
sure.
Do you feel like on your personal side though, it makes you have to carry more when you go home at night?
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
Never thought about it, have you?
No, because I've lost my own child,
Yeah.
and so being hurt to that extent, it's not that I don't care, it's just when you've been hurt so hard,
Hmm.
your bad day is just as important as their bad day, so
Yep.
you can relate to how they're feeling in that moment, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it's helped me do my job and be who I am, yeah, for sure.
So with that side of it, the the way you can be empathetic with a caller, especially someone that's just needing that voice, do you feel like those that are on the younger, because we bring in dispatchers that are 18 years old,
Yeah,
they're barely graduating high school, they're just really getting a start in life. They haven't had those horrible,
humbling
yeah,
moments,
I mean,
yes,
they're very humbling moments in life.
they get humbled.
Do you feel like that?
I point it out to them. I very
I'm
much point
sure
it
you
out.
do.
I do. I do,
But do you feel like because you had those humbling moments, you were already better prepared for this?
for sure, for sure.
So what's one of them moments where you're if we can, I don't wanna get
Uh,
is there one that you can
depends
kinda
on the
walk
question.
you can walk us through how you would humble somebody that's coming in to get them ready to hear we'll just go with a cardiac arrest call because that is a moment where someone's loved one is, they're not breathing, they have no pulse, and you're trying to walk them through CPR and all the things you guys do. How do you humble that dispatcher on day 1 through, say, with the first 30 days, right? That's pretty critical time frame with the way you guys are training and developing them now. How do you
I
get it
just
in
make
their
sure I
mind?
point out to her what you hear in the background, how to recognize those cardiac arrests
Mhm.
or symptoms of a stroke. You want to make sure you get help right away as quick as possible. But you point out things you hear in the background, things the caller's saying because they're not sure. They don't know what to do a lot of the time. It's just it comes with experience, and that's why you always try to put a seasoned dispatcher with someone that's not, just so she can help guide her through those calls that are critical.
So what's it like the first time, if you can remember the first time you ever did it? I mean, I know you do it so often, but anytime that you can remember, what's it like having to sit there and talk somebody through grabbing their loved one, taking them off of a chair or the bed and starting CPR? And because for us, I've never had to talk somebody through it that wasn't already trained on a mannequin and or we're using a Lucas device, so we're not having to feel the cartilage breaking. And, it's kind of ingrained in responders, but you're having to have a layperson that might have zero knowledge of this in life.
You'd be surprised the people that are not sure of themselves that don't wanna do it,
Hmm.
but when you finally get someone that will, it's just like it's that rush,
Hmm.
you get that blood pressure rise, just as you were on the field doing it. I mean, and you just hope that they're doing it. You just try to count with them, keep them at
Mhm.
pace, make sure there's somebody there that can switch off with them.
So many times I've watched you guys and you've had to go in there and say they're refusing. What is that like to know that you have all these tools to help them, but they're refusing and
I mean, you just always question, could you have saved them? I mean, that's not if they would have just done could we have saved them?
mhm,
I mean, you still wonder that. That doesn't ever go away.
even with time?
I mean, they refuse quite often more than you would realize.
What's a percent if you had to throw one out there?
Over half.
Oh, wow.
I would say over half the calls, they just are not sure. You can try to, talk them into
Mhm.
it some of the time, but half the time, they do not have the confidence in themselves to do it because 'cause they've never done it before. But sometimes you can talk them into it, sometimes you can't.
What's some of the things you guys do that you've been trained on or and kind of figured out over time to convince someone to do something of this nature? Because it's not normal. As somebody that's done hands-on CPR.
You just reassure them, "I can talk you through this, we can do this,"
Mhm.
"I just need you to turn them over," you know. There's been a few times I was able to talk them into it,
Yeah.
sometimes you just can't, you know.
Is that harder for you guys
You
not being able to talk them into it, or is it harder to actually have to walk them through and hear them
I'd
processing
rather
that?
hear them. I'd rather hear them
Yeah,
for sure.
because at least you're making that impact.
Yeah, at least because then when it's all said and done, at least they know they tried.
Yeah.
They can have that moment of, "I tried, I was" and that comes with time. They're not gonna
Mhm.
feel that way right away, but,
Oh, yeah.
at least they know they did as much as they possibly could, and you don't ever wanna, because then you don't want them to feel like they didn't do enough, because you feel like you didn't do good enough.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't ever really go away. You still pick those calls apart, "Could I have done this more? Should I have said this, or should I have said that?" But that makes you good at your job.
Yeah. Makes you able to get better for the next one. It's a big part of what we do. So, let's talk about when we call coroners. How does that if we've so you've toned us out, we've done a cardiac arrest. You don't really hear a lot of traffic from us for a while. What is that next moment like when all you hear from us is, we call it CR1, notify CR1. What's that? What processes through y'all's mind in that moment?
I mean, all of us kinda we sit in silence for a minute. I mean,
Mhm.
we do our call and do what we have to do, but it's that somber moment where we all still wonder what went wrong. I mean, because you automatically blame yourself. Did I get them there fast enough, or this or that, or if everything works out in flow, that's just if
Mhm.
everything works out in flow. Um, you just always wonder if it's enough. But sometimes you just take a deep breath.
You do a lot of breathing
I do a
techniques.
lot of breathing techniques.
A lot of breathing
I tell the
techniques.
girls I breathe, and it's not because 'cause I'm mad. You're gonna think I'm frustrated, but I'm not. I'm
I have
just
to
getting
remember that next time I'm
yeah.
on the phone with you and I hear you breathing, I'm like, "Oh, I must have frustrated her."
No, no. If somebody's talking in the background asking me to do something else, I'm sure. Well, it's just the job. It's just the
Mhm.
nature of the job. And, you have to take a breath sometimes because you're being pulled from here and there. And, yeah. Then somebody calls for a burn permit, in the middle of it all.
So speaking on that, and this is something I haven't actually been in there and really seen the full hit of it, but what's it like being in there when the calls just keep coming? So I say that because I've always wanted
It
to see it.
used to stress me
Yeah.
out. It doesn't bother me like it used to when I first started.
Mm,
I just put them on hold. Like the landline's not
yeah.
important. So if you call the landline, I don't treat you like you're important. So if it's important, call 911.
That's what it's there for.
And I tell the girls just put them on hold. I mean, that's
So what about like on I-40 when you get 50 people calling and they're all calling 911?
about the same
Mhm.
accident or the grass fire. We just let them know the help's on the way. Thank you for calling. I just, disconnect the call and move on to the
Mm,
next. It does get stressful. You know, we try to just get one girl to answer the phone as much as she can while we're working the
mhm.
accident, because the patient's what's important. But it does get frustrating at times. But that's just part of it. Everybody wants to help or nobody wants to help,
I was gonna ask
you
how
know how
often.
that goes.
Yeah. How often do you guys get frustrated whenever? Because 'cause we'll go from
They won't make contact with the person that had the
yeah.
accident. I get if they're on the random side of the road
Mhm.
and for safety reasons and you don't wanna stop, like, I totally understand that. If somebody's on the side of the road, they got a flat tire and you're just worried about them because it was an elderly person or a young girl or whatever.
Yeah.
I totally understand for safety reasons why you
Yep.
wouldn't stop. But if somebody's in a car accident and you see the whole front of their vehicles messed up and you don't know if they're dead or alive, or injured or not,
Mhm.
they may be just trapped in the car. Just maybe stop.
Mhm.
Say, "Are you okay? Do you need me to call somebody?" You know, that would be very helpful,
Mhm.
you know.
'Cause it's probably frustrating. I can only imagine how frustrating it is because we'll
They
get
won't stop.
responding.
Nobody'll stop.
No one stopped. No one's checked on them. You've toned us out, us
Right.
and medical and law enforcement,
And
and
I'm
then
wasting resources because I really don't know
yeah.
if they even need y'all. They coulda just, jammed up their car and
Mm.
just can't leave but nobody's injured. Of course, be checked out. Like, I totally understand that. Make
Yeah.
sure everybody's no head injuries or anything like that. I
Mhm.
totally understand that. But, you know, when it's snow and sheet of ice on the ground and everybody's having accidents, I would rather send the ambulance to someone who is
Mhm.
really injured versus someone who is complaining of a back pain, for that maybe didn't need medical after being checked out. We've just wasted time for here or there, and you just want to know more about the patient
Mhm.
and utilize our resources and who is really and who needs medical first,
Mhm.
you know.
So I wanted to pivot from that. That's why I asked because 'cause we'll get on the radio then and immediately, "Well, why don't you have information? Where's the actual accident? What's going on with the patient? How is"
But that's why we don't know,
Yeah.
because nobody stopped. Somebody just drove by and said, "Hey, I saw a car over here. I don't even know if anybody's in it." It could
Mhm.
have been abandoned from the night before,
Yeah.
you know?
Which is oftentimes
It
many of the
that
time
does
the
that does
cases.
happen. I've had a hunter on the side of the road just out in the deer woods. His truck was parked there, and I'll have to do a welfare check on it because somebody called it in, and that's where he parks his truck and walks off and goes and hunts. I just know in the back of my mind what truck he has this year.
So that way when you get the next call,
So
you
when I get
know.
the next call, he's driving a Silverado, so I know that it's him hunting. We have our regulars.
Yeah, I can tell. Quite a few regulars. So, with that being said, if there was one thing that you could tell the responders in the field that you get them to understand on your guys' side, so that way we, help bridge that gap there, what would it be? What would that nugget of wisdom that could really help them see inside what you guys are dealing with and doing every day in processing?
Our information is just the least amount possible. It's nothing like what's on scene. I mean, when someone does tell us a passing by accident, it's a color of a car they never know make or model. So to be patient with us because we really don't know what you're fixing to walk in on. I can't prepare you for that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know how severe the patient is. I wish I did, just so they could maybe prepare the younger ones, and maybe some of the more seasoned ones go ahead just to prepare them.
Mhm.
You try to protect the younger ones from being exposed too soon,
Yeah.
you know? I wish I could prepare them a little more for that, but sometimes I just don't we don't know.
So do you feel like, well, because we call it doing a size up because we want to hear for the other units coming in what we see and what's going on. We still do that over the recorded lines with you guys. Do you feel like that helps you guys kind of get a better picture of what we're dealing with so you know what we
Yeah,
might need?
yeah, because sometimes we ask, what's the
Mhm.
patient status for when we have to get a bird or when we
Yeah.
have to do just so we can tell them, kinda relay things. It does help us kinda understand because we don't know a lot of the time what y'all see on scene or what y'all
Mhm.
deal with. So, yes, it does if we communicate, it does help for sure.
I know it can get chaotic, especially with some of our larger scale scenes and the responders coming from all over the county. But do you feel like us being on a channel that you can hear does benefit you to know what's going on?
Yes, if y'all are on the same channel, I'm good.
I knew that was coming. I knew that
If y'all
little
are
dagger.
all on the same channel, it's good. Um, because I can listen. That's that background, that multitasking. I can
Mhm.
listen. You to talk to, whatever chief on whatever district, and just to I automatically know you are fixing to call out for a bird. I automatically know you are fixing to go set up for an LZ. I automatically know where the it helps me to know what to prepare for to get my girl, are you gonna call for the bird and I'll log it?
Mhm.
I'm gonna do the login or you're gonna do who's doing what. So it does help, you know, but it does help to be told like, hey,
Mhm.
get a bird coming, things like that.
But just
if
having that foresight of being able to hear and listen, okay,
But that
the
comes with me being
yeah.
experienced too, is I can listen to y'all and I do know what y'all want or gonna fixing to ask for or
Mhm.
what's fixing to happen, but that does come with experience, so
Do you feel like that it helps, though, for the newer ones to go ahead and still be hearing it so that way they can get used to hearing
because
that
we don't
traffic?
know y'all's lingo
Yeah.
sometimes. Y'all have reference for things that we don't call it that,
Yeah.
so it does help. It does help me prepare them for what y'all are talking about sometimes.
I was gonna ask next on that was, so medical has lingo,
Yes, so I
fire
have
has
to learn
lingo,
it all, yes.
police has lingo.
And I still learn things.
Yeah.
I don't know what y'all call some things,
So how
but
do
some of
you
our girls are on the fire department or have been or husbands are, and
yeah.
so that helps. I'll ask,
Mhm.
but sometimes the younger ones are very informative on things. I don't, that's why I'm communicating with everybody and talking
Mhm.
back and forth and seeing their angles. I learned a lot from the little young girls because I'm not into the whole abbreviations. I don't know what some of that stuff
You don't got
means.
TikTok?
No, I don't.
I thought everybody had
Yeah, well,
TikTok
I got
now.
TikTok, but I don't.
Okay. You
I
gotta
I
stay up on
don't
the
keep up with the lingo. I don't
oh, you don't keep the T or whatever they call it now, keeping up
no,
with everything?
no, I don't know none of that. I can't keep up with none of that. If I'm not
It's
at work,
okay.
I don't keep up with nothing.
I don't have TikTok, so I get it. I get I fall behind on my own lingo on my own fire and medical side. I don't see how they do it.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of lingo.
Mhm.
So if y'all don't tell me, I'll just ask, you
Hey,
know.
but now you know how we feel when you throw out a 10 code at us, 'cause
True.
you guys be throwing some 10 codes, and I'm like,
Can you give me a 20?
"You know me, you
Yeah,
know exactly
you
why I'm
better call
asking."
me on that.
Every time I ask y'all to call, because 'cause I'm like, "I feel dumb, you probably told me this one before, but
Well, I
what's
can't
going
remember
on?"
y'all's numbers, so I'll just shout out names on the radio
I'm
sometimes.
very familiar with you shouting out names. I have 7 different unique names now.
Right, right. It's all in my phone every time I've called you, whatever name I've called you.
But that's what makes this show fun, is because we can have that peace on that side of it. So we were talking about it before, some of the stuff that we've done, and we started really getting better at this, is, doing and having, like, picnics and stuff with different agencies. Do you feel like that builds better camaraderie between us?
Yes, I do. We enjoy it when
Mhm.
we're remembered. We do get forgotten, unfortunately, because 'cause we're kind of the redheaded stepkids,
Yeah.
in the basement. So, yeah, it is important to interact
Mhm.
and meet each other and see each other outside of work.
Yeah.
I think that does build relationships and just remembering that we're all human, we're still people, and it's not just about the job
Mhm.
sometimes.
Do you feel like if we did more of it, there would be more engagement? Because I know
I think
sometimes
we need more engagement,
yeah.
yes. I don't think that would hurt anybody's department. A lot more communication and
Mhm.
interacting and actually getting to meet each other and know what unit number they are when they key up. You get an actual voice and a face instead of just a voice.
I think sometimes, especially on the fire side, because we are such a bigger agency, we forget because there's only a small group of dispatchers in there, which you guys are growing. You got a lot more part timers and
Yeah,
stuff.
we're getting a few more
Yeah.
girls.
A few more people coming in, but they forget that, you guys might not necessarily know we're like 180, 384
There's a
firefighters right
bunch of
now.
you
Yeah,
guys.
we've grown.
Yeah, and no, we don't get to know you guys at all. Y'all are just truck numbers and
I'm just a
units and
truck
route,
number.
truck numbers and units and route.
That's so hurtful. I'm a truck number.
I mean, but
I'm not even a person
that's
anymore.
what I mean, and they don't get faces with a voice, and so
Mhm.
to them, you just are a truck number and a unit number, and I think maybe interacting a little more wouldn't hurt anybody.
Okay. I can't believe I'm a truck number.
I mean,
That's gonna stick with me for a while. I'm gonna have to process this one.
I'm
I'm
s
do some breathing
I'm sorry.
techniques.
You should in through the nose and out through the mouth,
I will tell
and
you,
you hold on 4.
yeah, my counselor has walked me through that a bunch of times. It don't really work for me very well. It takes
Mm.
too much thought process for me.
You're not good at multitasking?
Only when I'm working, but when I'm trying to just sit and do breathing techniques like I'm supposed to,
You feel like you're not doing them right?
yeah.
So you're overthinking it?
Oh, I overanalyze it to death. So now I do this stop sign thing where I just think of color red like that and just stop myself and just I first made fun of her for it. I'm not gonna lie. I made fun of her. I said, that sounds ridiculous. And I spent a week trying to do the breathing technique and I was like, it's not working. She said, I know you think it's ridiculous. Just try it. Well, I did. It does work. So now when I overanalyze stuff, that's what I do. I just throw the stop sign up and it helps.
Yeah, I mean, just to stop and regroup.
I just can't do the breathing side of it. I probably am naturally doing the breathing side of it
You
this
just
way.
don't realize it
Yeah.
because you're overthinking it. You probably are.
I was overthinking it a lot. It was crazy. Um, yeah, it is what it is, though.
That's fine.
Yeah. So, what would you tell if there was one thing you could get the callers, the people that dial 911? Because until you need it, you don't think about it, and that's really where you guys get forgotten the most. Is because you're not out there in the public. They don't see you because where you work is a secure facility. It needs to
Right.
be. It has to be for everything that you guys process and see and go through with the records and the law enforcement attachments and all
Yeah.
that. Um, if there was just one thing that you could tell them to really, educate them to help you guys for that next time that they need you or the first time that they need you, because some people don't know what that call is going to be like and how you're going to have to get certain information in a certain order, which is, as a first responder, I've had to call 911 for somebody and it was
Yeah.
super frustrating for me because I know you have to ask me certain things in a certain order.
They do get frustrated. Yeah. Just to know that my partner's listening on the other end and help is already sent. That's number one. We have to ask
Yeah.
questions, lead with where, where, where is your emergency? They forget that part and they'll just tell you what's going on. So when you're having to stop them talking, we've
Hmm.
wasted about 4 or 5 seconds already just not knowing where it's at, you
Yeah.
know. So leading with where
Hmm.
the emergency is the most important. Then we can go on with
Yeah.
the other stuff.
Then they can start yelling
Yeah,
everything else
then you
at
can
you.
scream at me. But I need to know where to send my
Mhm.
people to the screaming person on the phone because otherwise I can't. If I can just get you to settle down in the beginning, take a breath and tell me
Gonna
where.
just gonna keep digging now.
Just take a breath and tell me where. But it does help just to
Mhm.
know where.
Yeah.
They would just lead with that first.
So let's get rid of a misnomer while we got people listening. What you see on TV where they can pinpoint to this exact little square in this room, that's not true, is it?
No, no. It gives me a sometimes it will give me a pretty close
Mhm.
idea of where you are, but I can't just say that you're at this exact address. That may be your neighbor's house. So it is important that I get the address first.
Yeah, 'cause it's
Um,
giving you within so many like a
it gives
feed
me a
or yeah.
radius. It doesn't give me, especially if it's in a subdivision and you've got 30 houses in
Mhm.
there. Even I look on my iPhone and I track my kids from iPhone to iPhone. We're at the neighbor's house. When you look at that, we're at the neighbor's house and
Yep.
I know my kids are at home.
Mhm.
That's never exact.
Yeah.
Those are not always correct. So it can give me, house colors are important, vehicles in the driveway, things like that do help get you guys there a lot quicker than driving around trying to figure out where you're going.
I
But
know
those
quite
are
a
not
few.
exact. No,
Yeah.
they give me an idea and an
Mhm.
area. I can get people going, but if I don't know where to stop them, then
Yeah. I just thought that was a good one
yeah,
because
it's
even
not
I
ex
didn't.
it's not exact.
Yeah.
No, it's never exact. It gives me within a radius of
Mhm.
where you're at.
How many times do you get because of TV and movies, people like, "Well, you have my phone number."
Yes, yes, that's all the time, and I get called names.
That
Yeah.
can be fun to deal with.
No, no. I need to verify your
Mhm.
address, you know. We get called names on there quite often because we don't know exactly where they're at. I still have to confirm all that. Even
Mhm.
though I know a general area, I still have to confirm where you're at.
Sounds pretty rough to have to be called
There
all
are
them names.
times. There's times.
So what makes
There are
you keep
times.
doing it,
'Cause I love it. It's a
even through all of that?
even through all of it,
Yeah,
even through all of it. Some of us are just built to help people.
yeah,
There's not a lot of us out there.
that is true. You really
No.
have to be built to be a dispatcher because I have sat there with you guys, and that is a unique way of helping folks.
I don't know, It's just a rush. Every call's a rush. I
Mhm.
mean,
You get the same adrenaline rush now that
as
day one? So that's still the
so that
same?
rush that you guys get going
Yep.
on calls, jumping in the trucks and going, that's that same. We get that same.
Do you ever
But you have to love what you do doing what
Yeah,
I do.
yeah. You can't just live off the adrenaline.
You can't just be there because you of the job title because you think it's a good idea. No, you gotta love what you do and helping people
What
for
would you
sure.
tell people that are thinking about getting into it?
Be sure of yourself.
What do you mean by that?
Be confident. Have a little confidence in yourself. Be sure.
Self-assurance?
Be sure.
You feel like there's a way for them to try it and maybe gain that confidence?
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you'd have told me changing careers at 36 years old that I'd be doing what I was doing and having to read on the radio, I'm not good at public speaking.
Mhm,
I would have never believed you,
mhm.
but I had the confidence to do it. Like I was determined to do it. So yeah. But if you'd have told me years ago that I'd be doing this, I'd have told you you're a liar. There's no way.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you're not good at public speaking. I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah. But you had to. I was determined.
mhm.
I wanted it. But yeah.
Made you able to
Yeah.
overcome those pieces.
But, you have to be a little confident in yourself. You have to have a little confidence and
Does that
believe in
help you?
yourself.
Like, on your personal life when we talk about that balance, is gaining that confidence and really getting better at the job and being more, you know, forthcoming talking on the radio? Because then you gotta hear yourself, which is
S
mind-numbing to hear.
Yeah, I just skip my voice on the radio and move to what I'm trying to listen to. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I just skip what I said, like, I don't wanna hear myself, but
But has the other portions of it, you feel like it's helped you, get better in your own personal life and things that you wanted to do there and grow as a
I
person?
have yes. When I was younger, I was a young mom,
Mhm.
and I like to yell, like, "Get out of there," "Don't do that." I don't do that anymore.
Really?
I don't yell. I
Mhm.
don't now, that's come with time.
Okay.
I didn't get there s quickly.
Wasn't overnight?
That wasn't overnight, but I don't get so aggravated anymore,
Yeah,
you know? It comes it it's helped me be a better me,
that's
for
cool.
sure. Yeah.
So personal and career growth all at once.
Yeah.
That's good. Is there anything else? I don't wanna keep too much of your time. Anything else you
No,
wanna talk about
um,
today?
I don't think so. You just gotta love what you do.
Mhm.
You gotta love helping people and be very empathic, for sure.
Well, it shows in your work that you do love helping people,
Well, I
and
appreciate it.
I know the people of Conway County appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate them, for sure. You guys and the fire departments and med tech, for sure. I couldn't do my job without you guys.
Well, thank you for your time today, Jeris. Guys, this will be on the Turnouts. Look forward to you seeing you.